𝗔𝘂𝘁𝗵𝗲 is the Microsoft Playbook development system that is centered on increasing your efficiency in drawing plays, generating scouting reports, creating scout cards, drawing within PowerPoint and Visio. Build your library of plays from scratch or by using the PQD folder system. Utilize our Visio stencils or PowerPoint shape library to help you draw your plays. Create your playbook by adding drawings from your library to a custom template to help organize your final playbook. PQD will resize your drawing based on the template that you have chosen. We believe we have the tools that can help you become a better coach.
Welcome to the Culture Classroom, a podcast for teachers and coaches by teachers and coaches. Listen to top leaders, innovators, and influencers share their stories about how intentional culture elevates performance. Now, here are your hosts, John Weaver and John Torrey. Let's get better together.
And Coach Torrey, welcome back to the Culture Classroom. Listeners, thank you for continuing to tune in to numerous episodes of the Culture Classroom podcast. Coach Torrey, today you have a heavy heart after what happened yesterday. You have a story to share with our listeners, some key takeaways I think they can make applicable and practical to their way of life. It's a guy that's been on our podcast before. And I'm just going to turn the mic over to you and intercede when I can about this topic that you put on me yesterday, probably around 4 o'clock.
No, it's great. I'm not sure it's my story to tell, but I feel like there's lessons that I learned and there's lessons that we can share with other people with being respectful and without going into all the details. And that information is certainly out there for those of you interested or listening. But Coach Adam Burns, who just about 2 years ago was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer, passed away last week. And yesterday we had the funeral. And my wife and I went to the visitation on Wednesday, funeral yesterday, ran a 3-hour out so that employees and students could attend. He was 35, just an amazing man and leader in our community, coached 4 sports, taught at the high school, and then was involved in everything from the youth all the way through high school sports. And someone that I had a lot of admiration for and some authentic experiences. We coached JV together for 10 years for football. And sometimes I called the offense, sometimes he called the offense, sometimes I called the defense. The last couple of years, he's called the defense. And then on Friday night, we shared special teams. So no one understands what it's like to coach special teams until the bullets are flying and kids are going down like flies. And all of a sudden you're at your 8th person on your depth chart, like, oh man, we're pulling this guy from, you're no longer on punt, now you're going to be on kickoff, and okay, you're out from kick return for the rest of the game, and now you're on for this. And I mean, it gets crazy sometimes with special teams. So Coach Burns and I did it for a long time, and the whole deal is sad. There's no other word for it, right? And I learned a lot of lessons from Coach Burns. The first one I write about, the most important one, I feel like we shared on our podcast, and I write about it in my book, and that's, you're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. And that has kept me grounded for a lot of years. So when we go out sometimes and lose 70-7, it's Coach Burns' advice that kind of helps me pick myself up and keep going. And when we go out and we beat a team 56-14, same thing. It humbles me a little bit to be like, okay, no, there's more work to do. We haven't accomplished our objectives yet. And I just think that's really valuable advice. And then there was advice that I received from a mentor because the funeral is really hard, right? There's a lot of reasons that the story is sad. I mean, he's 35 years old. He's survived by 2 young daughters. His wife is really young, close family friends, all those kinds of things. And so while everyone is sad over this deal and no one wants to go to a funeral, another mentor of mine 20 years ago gave me this advice, and he said, weddings are optional. Funerals are mandatory. Mm-hmm. And so it's Catholic Mass, and we're sitting there in Mass yesterday honoring Coach Burns, and we get to the homily. And I thought the priest did a very good job in 10 minutes of encapsulating some of the things that Coach Burns stood for, one of which is compete. And for those of you that don't know, he has his own charitable organization called Compete for a Cure, which goes to help other cancer survivors, specifically brain cancer survivors, as they compete to find some research and try to find a cure. And so competing is a big part of what we do as coaches, and that's what Coach Burns' life kind of really comes down to, was a competition all the time. But the priest really did a good job of talking about authentic love. And it hit me, right? Like, so for those of you that are spiritual or those of you that are very religious, I am not, full disclosure. Like, I have a great foundation and I was raised Catholic and I would call myself a Catholic. However, I'm not that into religion. I get spirituality more than religion. That's just kind of my own thing. And one of the reasons that I like that is the Holy Spirit, right? Like, you can't really understand what's happening around us a lot of the time. We don't know the whys or the hows or the whens. And so the Holy Spirit just kind of encompasses all that in the Catholic faith as like, yeah, this is the mystery. This is what's happening, and it's God who's doing the work. And I really felt that yesterday in the middle of the homily, in a packed church over a really sad situation, when the priest talked about authentic love. And I wanted to bring that to our listeners today. So, Coach Weaver, let me just ask you, because this is kind of priest framed his homily, what are some things that you love?
I love my wife. I love my kids. A new love is Jordan shoes. I love being around kids and impacting kids. I think that's why I'm in this profession of teaching and education. Where I'm sitting right now, there's my second period study hall. They're all saying, say me, say me, say me. So the impact that we get on that, that's a few. I mean, I love ice cream. I mean, I can't dismiss that. I love ice cream. I love God. So those are some things that I love.
Culture Classroom is sponsored by Pro Quick Draw, the dynamic playbook solution for modern coaches. Let technology work for you with time-saving features to eliminate the busy work so you can spend more time coaching. Our subscription comes with starter templates, stencils, and plays for you to begin building your 2022 playbook quickly. Give us a try for 30 days and keep all the templates you make during your trial. That's Pro Quick Draw.
That's great. It's a great list. And to all of our listeners, I would challenge you to write that down too. Write down a few things that you love. Here's the part about authentic love that hits different. This hit me different, right? Because I would say many of the same things on my list, although I hate ice cream, and there's a whole other story for that later on. I grew up on a dairy farm, but that has nothing to do with why I don't like it. But I've got another story for why I don't eat. I eat ice cream like once a year max. But Jordan shoes, I can't do it. I can't get behind the dollars that Nike brings. But a lot of the other things you listed, family, kids, wife, the game of football, I love being a Monarch. I love competition. Mm-hmm. I would include some of those same things on my list. Here's the point about authentic love, and I think it blends in with authentic cultures. There are good days and tough days when you love something. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the metric is. Maybe there's a researcher out there smarter than me that has actually tried to do this. But I would actually number the tough days at least 4-1 for the great days. Thoughts on any of that?
Actually, yes. I was in the office probably Tuesday, and people were just like, you seem like you never have a tough day. I do. And I think in the education and profession, the education that we're around, the profession that we're in, all that stuff, I think we have to fake our tough days a lot to give somebody our best days every day. Not saying that we don't have them, but there are days that I don't want to come to school. There are days that are tougher than others. I think it's in how you make it. So as you process that, and as listeners, there are no bad days. There are tough days. The old tough times don't last, but tough people do. But I think you have to have a support system as well to help you with those tough days, to bring you out of it. I would go 3-2, not 4-1. I'd go 3-2 on the 5 work week, because Saturday, Sundays are good days, right? Sundays, NFL football. Saturday in the fall is college football, and it's hard unless your team loses, right? That's going to be a tough day, and you bet on it, and you lose that bet or whatever. But I don't do either, so I'm not worried about a score or anything like that. So I think it's 3-2 on tough to good.
Okay. Like more tough days though than good days, right? Like
I would say with the climate that we're in right now, it's been tougher. I think if we go back to our 22-year-old self, I think it's 4-1 good to tough because of less responsibility.
sure. That I totally agree with that. Like, and when we talk about authenticity, I mean, we're talking about responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't be authentic and irresponsible. That doesn't work. Like, we call that unemployed in the adult world, I feel like.
Yes, absolutely.
But I don't know. I was just thinking about this and authentic love. And I know we've talked at great detail on a lot of podcasts over the years and in a lot of conversations. We love the people around us and the things that we do different in different ways, if that makes sense. Like what you do doesn't work for me. What I do doesn't work for other people. And I think that's where the authentic piece comes in.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in leadership, we try to steal from everybody, right? Because that's just good. If someone else is killing it and doing good things, why would we not try to steal from them?
Best form of flattery is imitation. So roll with
100%. But imitation doesn't lead to authenticity.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
And I think that's what's great is that when you love something or someone and you can lead authentically, then, and you can have, you're going to have tough days. I think all that comes together, and our culture is the same way, right? Like authentic cultures are really hard to duplicate.
Yeah. I think there's and we've talked about this at length in a previous podcast, but I really think there's some transparency to that of being authentic, knowing that you don't have it all together. You know, going back to high truth, high love, as you're saying that, I think authentic truth and authentic love and what that looks like. And if you're a CEO, if you're a teller at a bank, if you're an athletic trainer, or you're a first-year nursing student versus a doctor, I mean, what does that even look like? Authentic truth and authentic love paired with high truth, high love, and there's some kind of metric there that, like you said, somebody way smarter than us can figure that out of what that quadrant and where you want to be and.
Someone please do your doctorate on that question,
yes.
So that we can have some grounded research to support the babble we're spitting.
Right, absolutely. But I think there's a lot of truth to that authentic love piece, though.
I think you bring up a good point too with the high truth, high love. I'm glad you brought it back to that because in my mind, high truth is authentic truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's not authentic, it's not worth very much. A replica is not nearly worth as much as the real thing. I don't know about you, but when I buy gear, and I'm a big gear guy, right? Like I want authentic gear.
I love gear.
My wife gets mad at me because, I have to have what the players have, or I have to have something that is down to the specifications of exactly what is happening on the field. So I'll pay $300 for a jersey when I could get a replica for $120, but
I think about those old starter jackets, right?
Oh, I've got two in my closet, but they're the original. They're from when I was 12.
So they're authentic. There you go. I don't think kids today would understand what a starter jacket is. Like when you had the authentic starter jacket, you're on another level. You're on another level. You walk the halls. You walk the halls differently. I'm sorry. You just walk the halls differently.
If it's a Raiders or if it was a Charlotte Hornets, like those were the two best starter jackets that people would kind of that were a big deal. I have neither of those. I have a Nebraska one, and then I grew up a John Elway fan, so I have a Broncos one.
I had a Braves one. I have a Braves one. I had one.
Yeah.
And I wore it out.
It's that authentic piece, right? Like today we're seeing starter jackets kind of coming back in with different retro companies, but they're not authentic. Like they're not the starter version. They're the starter times whatever company is making them. But I don't know. Authenticity wins. So in my mind, high truth, high love is authentic truth and authentic love. And it looks different for everybody else, but that hit me different yesterday.
If we say authenticity, to put it simply, it means you're true to your own personality, values, spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise. So pretty much you're honest with yourself and with others, and you take responsibility, what we said earlier, take responsibility for your mistakes, your values, your ideals, and all that aligns with your action. We sounded just like Brian Kite when we said that. Sounds like something Brian Kite would say.
We did, but we just streamlined it, right?
Yeah.
We just took everything that they do in the Focus 3 system, and we just be authentic. That's my challenge to listeners. I mean, that's going to be what's really hard for our community in the days and the years moving forward now without Coach Burns is that's what makes going to the funeral a really easy decision yesterday. One, not only because they're mandatory, which I think is a great filter to go through, right? Like I go to very few weddings anymore. I go to every single funeral because it's mandatory. Weddings are optional. Funerals are mandatory. Right. But moving forward, Coach Burns meant a lot to me. And the reason he was a guest on our podcast, because he was authentic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm gonna give 3 things that I'm thinking of with our listeners before we go. I think you have to be impeccable with your words to be authentic. I think so many times in our society we just speak off the cuff, and it goes back to what I told this futures team is you got to give somebody your best yes. Be authentic in that. And when you give somebody your best yes, tell them yes and go do the best job. Be impeccable with it. And if you can't help them, be authentic in saying, no, I'd love to help you, but I can't do it right now. I can't give you my authentic self to help you out with this. I think another thing is, and I'm guilty of this, so this is why this resonates with me, don't take anything personal, right? I take stuff, like the collective we, I hear it as I. So don't take things, personally. A hard truth for me is you can't please everybody. You can't please everybody. So stop trying to do it, right? And I go back to the easiest one, and it's so simple. It's so elementary, is go do your best. If you're being authentic, go do your best. Don't try to be like somebody else. I see so many coaches that want to be like Nick Saban, or they want to be like PJ Fleck, or they want to be like Pete Carroll, or they want to be – go be you. Go be you and who you are and who God created you to be, and do your best at it. And then go to bed, and then don't let that 4-to-1 ratio get you. Don't have as many tough days. Don't let those happen. Make those good days count, and then go minimize the tough days.
I think it's great advice.
Yeah. Just something as you were talking, I was thinking things that I struggle with. Wanting to please everybody. And that's a big struggle. If you try to please everybody, you're going to end up hurting somebody. So
there's
it.
one more piece of advice that I want to add to your list, because I think it's a great list. There's one more thing that when I got into education 16 years ago, I walk off the plane from the 49ers when our season ended. I'm teaching in a middle school for the first time. And I struggled for a while, because middle school is just that critical age, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I had a colleague who shared the best advice with me ever after your list. So your list is 100% spot on. The last thing that I would add, and this is where it hit me yesterday in the middle of the homily, is when you have those tough days, give it to God. Whatever God you believe in, whatever you do, just toss it out there and don't carry it with you. Give it to God. It will resolve how it's supposed to resolve.
Yeah. So Herbert, our head football coach, if you're a first-time listener, took the thing of DMGB, doesn't matter, get better, from the Kites, and he put doesn't matter, trust God, as the spin on that. So great words. I think we've both experienced this year a tough loss in our life, me with Doug Branning, you with Adam Burns, and as we sit back and reflect, I think like what you said, like those tough times are going to be tough, but when you do have those tough times, give it over to God. So, once again, thanks for listening to the Culture Classroom. You can find us at Mr. Torrey on Twitter and at Coach Weaver MRA on Twitter. We'd love for you to engage with us, give us feedback, or any potential guests that you want to see on this show. Once again, thanks for listening to the Culture Classroom.